Windows, nah.
Yes, it's Windows, bro.
Ish.
Ah,
Dude, you need to invest in that MacBook quick.
yeah, bro. I need to just make the switch.
Just take
Okay,
that 20K hit.
one time. I think I'm gonna chow you, bro. Okay, now
Dude.
I think we're recording now. All right, so this is in lockdown with Kanye. Those who are still in South Africa know him as Nkanyiso Tshwete. All of us who went to school with him just know him as Kanye. Kanye, what's up, dog?
Hey man, I'm doing well, bro. First of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's
Anytime.
just really awesome to be and really good to catch up.
Yeah, no, awesome stuff. For those that don't know, Kanye's living in Australia. He's lived there for a while. Um, I have to ask, your skin is the same shade as mine, yet you decided that you're moving to Australia. Why?
So if I have to go back 10 years, at
It's
that
been that
time,
long.
yeah, it's been that long. At that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life.
Mm,
I don't think anyone at 18 should be asked what do you want to do for the rest of your life, first of all.
mm,
Um, and yeah, so I didn't know what I wanted to study. Um, and then heard about this, this sort of like gap year happening in Australia.
mm,
And it just seemed like I've always been a guy about opportunity. So it just seemed like the opportunity to take
mm,
new experience. And I was ready to sort of move out of, I mean, I've always been a porter, but I was just ready for new experiences.
mm.
Because, you know, academics had been hurting me. So I was like, I just need a break. Let me just reset.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just took the opportunity at the time. Didn't know anything about Australia. It's only after I took it where Oaks were like, hey, dude, if you go over there, we're not too fond of people who look like us. And,
Yeah.
where you're going, it looks like Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
All these lies Oaks were telling me.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, Australia, how do I put it this way? It's too good.
Sure.
So it's too good for you to be worrying about prejudice and like racism does exist, but in the most passive form.
Okay.
And usually it's just like SA. You figure out the good and the bad people and how to navigate through life. So
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
this has honestly been the biggest blessing for me. I almost look back and I'm like, how did you make such a decision at 18?
Yeah. Looking at how it's
Yeah,
worked out.
dude. Yeah,
Sure.
definitely wasn't easy. I'll tell you that.
Mm, mm,
Um, Definitely had a lot of trials and tribulations. Not even from living out of home. Not a lot of people that look like you.
mm.
Um, the struggle of like the rand versus the Aussie dollar.
Mm.
I won't pretend I was out here being bougie and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there were many calls where dad was like, maybe you should come home. Things
This is
getting a
it.
bit deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, yeah, dude, I was working throughout university,
Mm, mm.
like waiting table. Like I was just doing everything I could to sort of not survive, but sort of ease the pressure off the folks. And
Yeah.
um, yeah.
So you've been there 10 years. What are you up to now? What have you mentioned your university. What did you study and sort of how far have you come now?
So yeah, I did a major in accounting and finance, BCom.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I graduated mid 2015,
Nice.
took a bit of a break, and then started working March 2016
Yeah.
as a graduate accountant
Okay.
at a IT firm. Yeah. So at the moment now, I'm sort of a assistant management accountant in
Yeah.
a IT firm. Yeah. Which I mentioned offline is sort of like been taken over by this multinational Japanese company. So that's also starting to open avenues in terms of the CFO of that company was like, hey, if you guys want to come over to Japan, come have a crack for 6-12 months. And I'm the kind of
Mm.
guy who's looking at those I just look at the pockets that open and I go, hey, let's explore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
almost like
So
this
and
under.
also
No, no, sorry,
yeah,
continue.
and also completing CA
Oh,
at the
okay.
moment, so it should be done in just under a year. Yeah.
Thanks.
Results come out on Tuesday, so wish me luck.
Yeah. Maybe I'll post this video
Yeah.
on that day when you get your results. It sounds like
Yeah.
your hunger's opened a lot of doors, man. That's really awesome. I see you've got recording equipment there, which is a lot fancier than what I have in my background. This is like a bed frame and whatnot.
Yeah.
You
Hey, you can
mentioned
see my
that you.
kitchen sink there.
I see it. I'm trying to block it out. I'm focusing on the professional stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
So people may not know. I know because I've listened. You've got an awesome podcast with Nick, another mate from school, called The Pedestal. I'll put the album art on the video. But just talk me through that, like the idea behind it. And I mean, it's an awesome thing. But in the midst of studying and being busy with your life and being overseas, by the way, Nick is in South Africa, Kanye is based in Australia, with a 6-hour time zone difference. Like, where did that come from, and how has it been?
So the podcast has been an idea since I was like 13, 14. We've always been those guys like, hey, dude, we should have our own show. Yeah. We should have our own radio show. You know what I mean? It's always been pipe dreams.
Yeah.
But yeah, around 2017, the technology became available where you can record a podcast with someone over the phone. The application I use is called Anchor. Okay. So anyone can actually do a podcast. So the technology became available. I called Nick up and I was like, dude, we always talk about this thing. Let's do it. And before we sort of like did it casually, like, hey, whenever you're free, do one every once in a while. And then I think this year we just got to the point where we're like, look, we either do this properly and we sort of give it a red hot crack, or we stop. That also just came into sort of a realization as you sort of get into your late 20s, as much as you think they won't come that quick, they come real quick. And not that any doors are closing by any means at all, but we're trying to move away from the I talked about it. We're just trying to move into let's just do it now.
Yeah.
And this podcast was a big, hey, we'll do it someday. Hey, we'll really put in the work someday. And we just wanted to be like, let's just do.
Yeah.
And
just get it out there.
And also just like coming to a realization of there's no rugby, there's no like arts and culture. Like you need to sort of make this other time outside of work more fulfilling. You can only go out and jaw so much. Folks have been doing it for like 10 years now. So
something's got to change.
Starting to try and look at, dude, we can't jaw forever.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me, the way I try to like look at it is when I used to play rugby, right? I loved putting in the work. I loved the practices, the drills, I almost love that more than the actual game. And podcasting for me gives me that same feeling where I'm actually the work into it, the research, the understanding the equipment, that gives me that feeling of like the grind is what I look forward to. And often sometimes with work, especially with the stages in our career, that's not always the case.
Yeah. That is true. Do you find that this thing, the passion for it kind of like the draw to it is what pulls you and what makes it, because sometimes, man, like if you have to do something, it's kind of like not really keen. And so do you find that there's a fire that this thing sort of ignites in you? Like you mentioned, the whole process, not just the actual recording.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely like that sort of, I'd be lying if I said I love accounting and finance. You know what I mean? Or at least at this stage of my career. Maybe there is a later stage where it becomes more fun and enjoyable. And what you don't use, you lose.
Yeah.
So while you have these passions, whatever they may be, actually, I just got to the point where like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Because life really is too short. Like I know people say it and it's a catchy phrase, but it started to hit me now in my late 20s when like days became real repetitive.
Yeah.
Real repetitive. And you're grinding, you're working hard. You're not like laying around doing nothing.
You're giving of yourself.
But you blink and the week's, dude, and you blink and the week's done and another week and another month. So we really wanted to start exploring our passions and really putting real man hours behind it. Yeah. So that's been the real drive. Yeah.
For me, it seems like these kind of things start early in life, and it's almost like in the early days, seed is planted, and sometimes you don't pay attention to that seed, and later in life it pays off. And this case in point, I'm about to share a screen now, This video was probably taken in 2009 or 2010. Before I play the video, I want to set the context properly. So
where
this
are you
is
finding
you.
these archives?
This is you. I'm here, but the screen's blurry. This is Melvin, another mate who's doing amazing things as well. He's, an engineer, but he's pursuing a career in music, which is really awesome. But this video was taken at, I think it was, I'm not sure the name of the show, but it was basically a cultural showcase where, guys of different talents were given the stage to perform. And it was a whole plethora of different talents, singing, dancing, and all sorts of stuff. And you and I were asked by the head of the cultural department to MC the show. I'm not sure if you remember. And I mean, we've spoken offline briefly about this, saying, we had no script and we just had to take things as they came. But for me, this was, probably 16, 17. And so much came through, so much raw talent came through. And for me, this is just case in point for, once you've been bitten by the spider, the poison's never going away. So I'm gonna play the video.
Yeah.
Watch at your own risk. Now the sound is not reacting.
No.
Okay, now you know this. Most times just perform once. Can we give them another round for applause? So now we had 2 dancers on stage. But have you ever tried dancing one man? Whoa. Dancing alone. One man on stage. No, I don't buy it. Who doesn't? Wait. Oh, I know someone. Anthony Ego.
I'll pause it there. What does when you watch this? I mean, I don't know when last you watched this thing. What does this mean for you, man? What feelings does it give you?
Dude, I don't know. Just like, just humbled, and it's almost surreal to just see yourself as a buck out there, just having all that confidence and being like, where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Who do these kids think they are? I'm always watching it like, who are these kids? How dare they think they can just perform in front of all these people?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just almost surreal, to look at it.
Yeah,
but definitely put a massive smile on my face.
Yeah. No, for me, it's that. And I think that's one of the messages I want to get across, with this whole thing that, we're in our late 20s going to our 30s, and there's so much outside noise telling us, you're not good enough, filter what you say, there's no audience for what you're doing. And back then, you didn't ask yourself those questions. You just know that this is what I want to do, and I want to be awesome at it. And you go out there and you do it. So I really hope that resonates with someone watching. Certainly, I think when I watched it again, I was like, sure, this means a lot, and this kind of helps direct my focus again. So it's really awesome.
Do you remember the thing we used to do before a speech? Do you remember it?
There's one that I remember.
Do you remember?
We have butterflies.
We literally just take fear out of our body.
You take it out your heart and cast it away.
Yeah. Just that anxiety. It never goes away. Everyone gets it.
Yeah.
We used to just we came up with that, dude. That to this day I still use that actually. Just take it out, yeah.
And that's the beauty, because you're not denying it. You're acknowledging that it's there, and then you cast it out. That's it's amazing, man. I also wanted to ask, so you in Oz, I remember we spoke a while ago and you said that Corona in Australia is kind of like a thing of the past. How is that possible? Like, what's life like there now?
So Corona, dude, it came and it went, hey? I mean, Australia, a lot of people don't know, it's the size of America. It's around the same size.
Geographically?
Yeah, geographically. But in Australia, everyone lives along the coast. You can't really live in the middle.
Yeah.
So the eastern states, I'm in the Western Australia, so I'm in Perth.
Okay.
But the eastern states are sort of like where Sydney is, Melbourne, your hub.
The ones that we know about
as
South Africa.
Yeah. And I'm on the other side. So basically when Corona hit, Australian government just went, okay, all flights done.
Shut down.
Just cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing they did, which was really good, is they cut the borders as well.
Oh, okay. And that was
So
without
like,
delay, like no negotiations and government was just like, it's
yeah,
done.
they're like, okay, cut. Okay,
Yeah.
borders are getting cut. And then they even cut like regional borders because
Oh,
of
okay.
the you know, the vulnerable low indigenous populations.
Mm,
Because obviously, you know, it's the same thing that if something like corona gets into, you know, our more vulnerable, the more vulnerable people in our community, it can
mm,
decimate them.
yeah.
So there was that big emphasis of, okay, we need to cut borders, and then we need to cut regional borders within provinces, if you call it, but they call them
Yeah.
states here. Yeah, and then it was pretty much instant lockdown. I mean, you got to remember, Australia is a small population,
Mm,
and so that's a big thing. And you know, it's not like it has a large like population in poverty.
oh, okay.
It's got a giant middle class,
Yeah. Yeah.
which works in its favor.
Which is very different to us this
Um,
side. Huh?
yeah, exactly. And
Mm,
also, I think all the cases in Australia, I don't think there has been a community. I think only recently, like as of today,
mm,
which was a bit of a like sort of a bittersweet thing to hear on the news, where um, some people tested positive this past week,
mm.
and they've traced it back to a couple of people who were at the Melbourne Black Lives Matter protests.
Oh, okay. That's a
Yeah,
sour taste in the mouth. Yeah.
it's such a yeah, especially
Yeah.
knowing you just know what conservative media is going to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a field day.
You see it and you're like, ah,
We didn't need this
you know what they're
one.
gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a yeah. But I mean, in terms of where I'm in Perth, right? So Perth, if you don't already know, is the most isolated city in the world,
Okay.
if not one of the most. But don't fact check me. But everyone told me it's the most isolated city in the world, right?
Mm.
So we were almost sort of like designed for something like this to happen,
Yeah.
almost,
Yeah.
because what's happening in Perth versus what's happening in Melbourne and Sydney is completely different.
Mm.
So here, like people are back at work. I was at a pub for my birthday last week.
Like in
Yeah,
public.
things are in public, you know, at a bar, flat paw, greeting people. Hello, how are
No
you?
mask on your face, nothing.
I've never owned a mask. I don't know what a mask is. A
Guy,
mask
do you
is
know
like a
that
thing I see on video.
you know that like there are new businesses that have sprouted where the sole product that they sell are masks. That's like in South Africa.
Yeah. No,
Crazy.
dude, even my mom sent me, you know how the moms always talk to us through WhatsApp now?
Yeah.
She was just sending me like, she was just sending me, hey, we can start a mask business here. I've got the textures from
Yeah.
Sunnyside. We can do this thing. I was like, Mom, get out. I'm not doing this
I
thing.
don't need this.
Yeah. But I even saw like Sia Khaleesi, he had Khaleesi ones. I was like, no, South Africans
Guy,
are the deep. They
it's
hustle.
real.
I respect it, yeah. But yeah, there's no, I was on the phone with a friend of mine and he was on his way to like a meeting of some
Mm,
sort. He was going to the office
mm.
and he was telling me they will not let you in the building without a mask.
Yeah.
And
It's
he was
like
like,
it's like a
yeah,
pass. You know, back in apartheid, having a pass when you walk with you, that's a must. You don't have it, you're not allowed in.
yeah, yeah. So it has been very surreal because obviously I communicate with South Africa on a daily basis.
Mm.
And just to talk to guys and just realize that, no, dude, like this weekend I will be at home. I will not be doing anything.
As I have been for the past 2 months.
I'll be chilling. And I won't lie, dude. We were so thankful when it did happen because like you forget how much you actually need that.
Mm. Mm.
You forget how much you just need that like even this weekend we also like, okay, where are we going out next?
Yeah.
What are we doing next? Because you
Yeah.
honestly you take it for granted. Yeah.
Yeah. You feel like you benefited from the lockdown, the mini lockdown that you guys had.
Me personally, look, I was extremely lucky because I wasn't in an industry that suffered or a business that suffered.
Mm.
So I definitely benefited
Mm.
immensely, and the podcast also got to take off as a result
Mm. Mm.
because we could actually start putting that time. It wasn't always, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also just getting that time by myself. I'm not saying, a lot of time by yourself can be bad
Mm.
if it's unproductive. But yeah, it's one thing that I also it's so weird. I learned this stuff long ago in high school, but I didn't apply it. And it's this thing they used to make us do in journey. It was called the solo.
Yeah.
And it was like just sitting there by yourself. I mean, we did it for 24 hours?
Yeah. It felt like a lifetime back then.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, taking that time, I'm not trying to tell you meditate. But one thing I would recommend people to do that really helped me is like just take time by yourself, even if you just put noise cancelling headphones or whatever, and just sit there and just listen to what comes out. Don't judge it, don't question it, but just hear what you're saying to yourself, because that stuff can directly impact you. Whether if you're saying negative things to yourself, if you're saying positive things to yourself, just observe. And that's one thing I really got to do throughout this experience.
Sure. That's so powerful, man. Before we part ways, one last question. You mentioned the case of corona that was picked up at the Black Lives Matter protest. I think it would be a crime for us as Black people to, in this time, not talk about it. It's a conversation that has been overheard, we know, but that's also because the crime has been over-perpetuated, unfortunately. But for you grew up in SA, you've got a family history of people who are in the struggle this side. You're now living in you lived in your own struggle through school, and we know the evils of the spaces we're in, and you entered a new space as well where, you're different and life is not what it should be, as is the case throughout the world. What are your thoughts on the current state of the Black life globally? I mean, it's a very open and far-reaching question, but just, what comes to the top of your head? What have your thoughts been over the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's been it's such a tough one to sort of, how do I say this? Whenever you want to talk about it, you always want to be the most articulate you can be. They don't really give you space to be raw.
Yeah.
When we talk about these things,
don't be the angry Black man. Just
give us your points.
Yeah.
Look, I grew up very fortunate. Even though I had my struggles and times and I thought life was unfair, hindsight, I grew up extremely, extremely fortunate. But obviously, a lot of people close to me didn't. So yeah, growing up now, the Black experience has always been a challenge. And I think what's happening now really made me sort of take a look at like a lot of things I subliminally do and don't realize. Like if I'm walking past someone, I always take the initiative to like move across the road, or I'll always make the space on the elevator because of, what society has told me for so long. And yeah, I definitely think we still have a very long way to go. But I've always, my parents were, my family's always, we were there side by side with Mandela. And Mandela's thing was always like education. Education's the only thing that will set us free. And, I'm not saying Oaks must get degrees and whatnot like that, but, real change comes through action. So, what do you preach at home? How do you educate those around you? Do you call it out when you see it? Do you support other Black people, other Black businesses? Where do your dollars go? So definitely trying to be more conscious of my actions, because that's the only real thing I can control at the end of the day. So that's usually when things like this happen, you're angry and you're frustrated and you almost don't know what to do. But I think, coming back, strategizing, organizing, communicating, and ultimately leading to action is what we need to do to sort of see the real change in our lifetimes and beyond.
Yeah.
So that's what I really try to focus on, like daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. What actions am I taking?
Sure. That's so powerful, man. I think we should leave it there. The take-home message is action. We just have to keep moving. And I think the thing that stands out the most is, supporting each other in all facets. The big thing that stood out, what you said, is where do your dollars go? So, rhetoric is one thing and it looks nice, sounds nice, but where it begins to mean something, which is on the pocket or in the things that we commit to, what are we doing? So Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. No, man, Nkanyiso, I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Yeah, and
thank you.
anytime you want me back, I'll be more than happy.
No,
We need
anytime.
to
I
actually
see
get you on
this.
the pod soon, bro.
So you see this, nah? This little thing that's happening. For me, I liken it to the seed that I showed in that share screen. In 10 years' time, I can't even imagine what this may look like. So I do thank you for your time, and I guarantee anyone watching that this is not where it stops. On that note, also want to wish you all the best with your podcast. Like I say, brilliant content, very professionally done. I'm not a big podcaster, but that's something that I'm willing to. So now I'm about to go do some more work. As I drive out the Pedestal, I'm there.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, that means a lot.
Yeah.
It honestly means a lot to me. Yeah.